everyone, this is Glenn Elliott, and in this tutorial we're going to be going over the Final Cut Pro X's timeline index and markers. Final Cut Pro X implemented an area where you can view, navigate, and search a project, which is called the timeline index. It's actually pretty unique. I've never seen this utilized in any other NLE, so it's pretty cool. The very bottom left of the screen, the first icon you're going to see here is the project library. Directly to the right of that, there's another icon, and it looks like a page icon. When you hover your cursor over it, it'll actually pop up and let you know, show or hide the timeline index. The keyboard shortcut is Shift-Command-2, or you can simply just click it. Once you click it, you open up your timeline index, and it's actually comprised of three main tabs. There's the Clips tab, the Tags tab, and the Roles tab. We're going to start with the Clips tab. Under the Clips tab, it's going to list every single clip that you used in your edit to the right here. And it's actually in chronological order. As you see, we started with a gap clip, and it lists a gap. And as we go down here and go through these different clips, you'll see to the left here, it actually has something that resembles a timeline cursor, and it's actually letting you know where the cursor is in accordance with this particular clip. So essentially, it's a list view of your edit, if you will. So it even lists cross dissolves. And as you see, as we hit the down arrow here, it'll step through our edit, and this little cursor here corresponds with our timeline cursor here. Now this is good if you have a pretty complex edit, which this is. I believe this is about an hour long. It uses about 600 clips. It's a pretty big project. So if there was a particular shot or a clip that I needed to find, I knew I used it in this project but couldn't find it, I can go ahead up here and use the search field to find it. Additionally, you can change the sorting options. By default, it lists all, which will list all video, all audio, all transitions, titles, everything. You can choose it to just show video only, or audio only, or titles as well. Stepping over to the next tab, the Tags tab. The Tags tab lists everything from chapter markers to keywords to analysis keywords to do's and chapter markers. So it has a lot of functionality, and incidentally, this is actually the tab that I use the most with my workflow. So down the bottom, you have several choices on what it lists in this tab. So all the way to the left, you have all to list all the different types of markers and keywords and whatnot. The next one over is your standard marker, your blue marker. That's the standard marker when you're in your timeline and hit the M key just to drop a standard marker. In this instance, you can see I used a bunch of them in the song to mark audio cues to know where to drop in particular shots. So there's various ways you can use standard markers. In here, once you click around, you'll actually see the timeline cursor jump to the various markers as we click. We can also rename markers here. And it can rename it. Vice versa, you can actually go in here and double click a marker to get into it and actually rename it in this way as well. Stepping to the next one, keywords. When you click on this tab here, this will actually list all the keywords that from the clips that are being used in your project. I haven't really found a use for this, but it is cool that you can do it. So once we organize our project up top with keywords and we start dropping them in, we can actually see a list of keyword collections that were used in your edit down here. And likewise, you could do searches for them as well. Once you click on them, they'll actually jump just like the markers will to the particular keyword. The next tab is the Analysis Keywords tab. As you can tell, it's empty because I don't use the analysis feature on Final Cut Pro X. On import or even after import, you have the ability for Final Cut Pro to analyze your footage and let you know if it's a 2-shot, a 1-shot, a wide shot, a close-up shot. It's something that I don't usually utilize, so that's why it is empty right now. But we can go ahead and fake it. I'll make a small selection here. Right-click and choose Analyze and Fix, and we're just going to find people. Click OK. And you'll see it working down here. So once it's finished analyzing, you'll see an actual purple line to let you know it's been analyzed. The blue line up here means it's has a keyword associated. The purple line means it's been analyzed. So we're going to go ahead and drop this down on our timeline, and you'll see it actually populate. It says 2 persons wide shot. So it could tell that this is a wide shot and it had 2 people in it. So that's how this tab functions. When you step over to the next tab, the next two tabs actually are related. The first one is incomplete to-dos, and the next one is completed to-dos. If you look closely, it actually looks like an empty box, and the next one is like a box with a check mark in it. Now, to-dos is something I actually use a lot. I've actually really enjoyed this feature. When I have an edit that comes in from one of my editors and I review it, and I find areas and shots that need to be swapped out, and changes to the audio, stuff like that, rather than sitting with him and going over it right away, I can actually mark it as I go through it. So if I'm going through an edit here and I find, you know what, I'm not real crazy about this particular shot, so I'm going to mark it. I'll mark it as a to-do item. So I'll hit M to add a marker, hit M again to enter into the marker, and at the top here you have 3 options. The first one is your standard marker, the next one is a to-do, and the third one is a chapter marker. We're going to make a to-do marker. So we're going to click that here, and I'm going to say swap this shot out. Just hit OK. So now it's a red marker, which is an uncompleted to-do marker, and you'll see it populate over here. And I'll do this one more time over here. We'll say we don't like this shot, or say the shot's shaky, I need it to be stabilized. So I'll just go ahead, M, go ahead and make a to-do marker. So I'll go ahead and just mark this as needed. So as you can see here, you see these 2 shots that need to be addressed, and as I click them, the timeline cursor on the right-hand side will actually jump between them. Now, once my editor gets it back and goes in here, he can open up the timeline index, goes to the uncompleted to-do section, and see a list of edit changes, and actually click on it, go to the shot, read the notes on it, make the changes, and you can go in there, double click to open it, and click complete it when it's done. And once you hit done, you're going to see it disappears from the left. And now it's going to populate the list on the next box over, completed to-do items. So you see here it's a green icon, a green marker rather, and let you know that it's a completed to-do item. So this function is excellent. I use it all the time. It's actually very, very helpful, because sometimes when you're reviewing an edit, or even for yourself, say there's an area on the timeline, say, oh, I need to go back and tweak that, or I need to go back and swap that shot out, but you don't want to do it at that particular moment, you have the ability to basically leave a to-do note for yourself as well. So these 2 tabs here are uncompleted to-dos and completed to-dos. So the last tab down here are your chapter markers, and obviously that's pretty self-explanatory. That's to add chapter markers for DVD, or even QuickTime. When QuickTime files actually retain the chapter marker information. So to create a chapter marker in your timeline, and thus far we've always gone M and then hit M again to get into it, there's an alternate way. You can actually hit Option M, and it automatically adds a marker and greets us with a dialog box to change the type of marker it is. So in this instance, it's not going to be a standard marker. It's not going to be a to-do. It's going to be the third one, which is a chapter marker. And you notice the color changes from blue to red to orange. Orange is a chapter marker. So we're going to hit done. And once you add the chapter marker here, it actually has a unique shape, as well as a little pin next to it. This pin here that you can click and drag left and right is basically a thumbnail pin. Wherever this pin lands, it's going to denote the thumbnail for that particular chapter. So if you had a chapter marker when it faded to black, rather than having the thumbnail for that chapter marker be black, you actually move this pin to an area of video that best represents that particular chapter. So over here in the left, you can see all the chapter markers. So I'm going to zoom out here on the timeline, Shift Z. As you can see here, we have several chapter markers. This is broken down. So we have main chapter markers that are named, and then we have blind ones in between. So just like every other tab, once you click, the timeline cursor will actually jump between the chapter markers. You can actually rename your chapter markers here as well. So it's very efficient way to jump around and just double check to see, make sure all your chapter points are in the right spots, or you don't have an extra one that doesn't, isn't required in a particular spot. So now we're going to step into the final pane down here, which is the roles pane. What roles are essentially are categories. They're categories of your footage. For example, there's multiple different types of audio you'll be using. Some is music, some is dialogue. So you can actually assign it a role to denote what its function is. So it's a way of organizing your project even further. So the roles tab allows you to adjust the visibility and isolate various elements of your project. Say you just want to work on the video. So you can actually click on video and it highlights all the video, ignores all the audio. And likewise with dialogue, click on dialogue. Anything that's actually marked with dialogue will light up as well. And same with titles and so on. So every single piece of media has a role by default. You can go in there and actually alter its role or add new roles, make up your own, that sort of thing. So this tab essentially allows you to change the visual representation of these clips that have these roles to allow them to stand out if you want to focus on a particular type of role while you're working. So that's a good overview of Final Cut Pro 10's timeline index and markers. The timeline index is, I feel, like one of those lesser known features, and I think it has a lot of power once you start to use it, particularly with the to-dos. I think that is brilliant. So hopefully that helped you wrap your head around it a little bit, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.